Alright, this is the next step in the restoration project of the 59 Ford Galaxie Fairlane 500. I've got it stripped down and just pulled outside, and I'm going to spend the rest of the afternoon making sure there's no hidden rust holes in the subframe. This is a very important process because if you miss one, then you're going to end up having to redo it again at a later date. So at a quick glance in the trunk, some of the stuff to watch for down on the inside, and I use a screwdriver here because once you start digging around in an old cart, it doesn't take much to come up with that. Old pop top beer tab, old metal hook, lug nut, washer, just a lifetime of history of things doing what they do. So I've got this side already cleaned out with a screwdriver, a blowgun up inside, ready to do this side. I've wire wheeled the whole trunk. A couple of spots that I hadn't noticed on the beginning spot. Now I'm poking through that. Hopefully you can see that. These are the type of things that we need to find on the inside. Now the back side doesn't really so much matter because I've already bought replacement floor pans, and this whole section and that whole section where the holes you see here and here, that's all going to be chopped out as soon as I'm done with my wire wheeling. So real quick on the inside, got the doors out. Don't want to miss anything on the inside of the door. Again, just a lifetime of accumulation of just leaves. But the good thing about these floors are not, the floor pan and the door are not rusted through. So if you notice here, all of that needs to be wired out completely, because if there's any hole at all, it needs to be completely cut out and replaced with metal. If it's just scale like I rust off there, then we could rust reform that with our rust reformer. So this piece right here, I showed in a previous video, just as most all cars do, this is where you sit with your feet. It will ultimately rust out. I've got replacement floor pans. I'll be chopping this out right above the pedal, across the seam, all the way to the back, and this whole section I'm sitting in right here is going to be chopped out and completely new. I'm welding all new metal in there. This is too far gone. If you can notice when I pushed on it, what you don't see a hole in, it's just the integrity's gone of the metal, so you can't rust reform that. So in the back, I've got the side skirts removed. I showed you that in a previous video. Same reason goes. If you reach down inside, look at there. Squirrels, pencils. That all needs to be gone because, again, before you rebuild this and put it back together with new interior, anything that's on the inside that you do not address is going to bubble through and rot. So that all the hidden holes that go all the way back through need to be thoroughly cleaned. I'll get to what I can with an OD grinder. This is the quickest way of doing it. What I can't get to, I'll do by hand with a brush. So what I'm looking for in the floor pan from the factory, this called all kinds of stuff. I just call it caulk, but gook, ick, whatever. When they're done welding these together from the factory, they run every single seam with this to prevent the weld itself from rusting through. This also becomes a culprit and tends to hide things. So in floor pans, where the valleys are normally to hold water, these need to be plucked and pulled to make sure that there's nothing hidden. So on the passenger side floor pan, again, there's rust on the pan, but there's no real holes. It's not like this side at all. Structural integrity is good, both from the bottom and from the top. That's going to be KBS coated, and that will be fine all the way up into the dash, so that's going to be great. So in the back, when I was already kind of plucking away, I noticed that's what you're looking for. So anything that hides from the naked eye absolutely has to be found, and you can only do that with spending some good quality time with a die grinder, a wire wheel, a brush, a probe, That's a screwdriver had an awl a little bit ago with the hole was poking through. So that needs to be identified, and most likely that corner piece chopped out, because if you look, I'm moving that just by pushing on that. So when you push on it, nothing should move. If it moves, that means the structural integrity has been compromised. So it's just in this corner. So one thing to note on almost all body pan vehicles, even to today, you notice that perfectly circular hole. There's plugs all over in vehicles. The reason for the plug is for stretch. So all of these body panels are stamped from a manufacturing standpoint, and the stamp themselves, every little ridge that you see in a body panel is what gives that body panel its strength. Without that ridge, metal's just loose and it'll bend. So any flat piece of metal is very, very weak until you stamp it. So that hole is fine, but underneath that hole there, if I can get that to, there we go. There we go. And that's why that floor pan's moving. No rhyme or reason why there would be a spot in the back left unless there was a cooler maybe sitting back there for his lifetime, maybe leaking. So one last thing before I get started that I thought was cool and turns this project into a bit of a time machine. I pulled the panel off that was covered with plastic, pulled the plastic off, and I found that. So my dad was in here on May 23rd of 2015, which was almost 2 full years ago. So him and I had been working on this project over the phone. I was acquiring parts. I told people that before. I wasn't sure how long he had been working on it. However, that same panel had been removed, obviously, about 2 years ago. So just a cool piece of history with the car. And this is the roof. Our headliner's been gone. Down inside these crevices here, there's no real rust in here on the roof. Roofs hardly ever rust. However, there is just some residents of the old mousetrap where they used to live at, and this all needs to come off because I want to put a new vibration pad up in the roof before I put the headliner in. So again, next several hours just going to be spent sanding everything down and looking for any hidden holes and then get them corrected. So update when I get done.